Hi there, it's Gareth from Rockfiend, and I'm delighted, honoured to be joined by Joe Hoekstra and Brandon Gibbs. Guys, how are you?
Yeah,
Good,
good.
bro. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah.
We're great. And both of you at the moment, you're in the United States, is that right?
Correct.
Yep. Yes, sir. New York City for myself and Iowa City, respectively.
New
That's
York
right.
and Iowa. And I may be wrong here, Joe, but you're an Iowa boy, aren't you, originally?
I was born there. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
kind of one of those cool coincidences with Brandon and myself that I was actually, born in his hometown. So we're both a couple Iowa boys. I mean, my parents moved when I was an infant, so I wasn't in Iowa very long. I was really born and raised in the Chicago suburbs. So,
Right. Okay.
but still a Midwestern boy at heart, for sure.
Midwestern boy.
Yeah.
So you're in New York, Brandon's in Iowa, but this time in 1 week from now exactly, you're going to be in the United Kingdom, and more particularly, you're going to be in the Scotland side of the United Kingdom to start a 12-date acoustic tour of the UK and Ireland, starting on the 11th of April in Bannerman's in Edinburgh, wonderful venue, and then ending in Dublin on the 23rd of April. That's right.
That sounds right.
So you've been touring as a duo since, I believe it's just since last year. It's a fairly recent thing. You've done a few shows over in the States, but my understanding is you've known one another for around about 6 years now. So despite being Iowa boys, it's only recently, in the past 6 years that you met. So Brandon, can you tell me, how did this collaboration and acoustic tour come around?
Well, like you mentioned, about 6 years ago, Joel and I were doing a rock cruise called Monsters of Rock. And anyways, I had a note on my itinerary that we had a meet and greet together. And I hadn't actually physically met him up until that meet and greet. So I was looking forward to it. And there was some music playing in the background. And I just kind of tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, this is the record that my band, the Devil City Angels, had come out with. And we just started chatting music. And then I was like, well, let me, at the end of this meet and greet, let me grab your number. And so down the road, a promoter, he fired off an email, said, hey, would you ever work with Joel Hoekstra on some acoustic shows? And I said, yeah, well, let me just text him, because I met him not too long ago. So I texted him, and then I think our first show, I want to say we opened up for Vince Neil, was it? Or something like that.
Yeah, we had that little string with Freddie back in the day, right? So was that really the first one?
I think
Yeah, I guess it was. Hard to remember.
The first one was we were opening for Lynch Mob, remember? Because the weather
And it ended up being just like a couple tunes or something, right? We went on and did like 2 songs or something crazy.
yeah.
The
And
event was running late. Yeah.
so we literally played 2 songs, and then the next night I think we had Vince Neil or something like that, and then we just started touring. I mean, literally any place that would have us, and more people started showing up, and it turned into a real thing and kind of real business. So we get along great, and both in love, infatuated with guitar and songwriting. So it's just been a pleasure, and I'm very, very thankful that we get to take this and go over there. That we did not see that coming, and so it's a blessing.
No, and the UK, we're very much looking forward to you arriving and to getting the gigs underway. It's going to be a great few weeks, I'm sure, for you and for everyone who goes to the venues to see you. Just talking about the venues. So, Brandon, last year you played some stadium tours with Poison. Joe, you've obviously been out in arenas and stadiums with Whitesnake and Night Ranger and Trans-Siberian Orchestra in the past. So what was the thinking, Joel, in taking this to smaller venues such as Bannerman's in Edinburgh, which, as I say, is a legendary venue over here, but it is small. So what was the thinking about taking the shows to smaller venues at this time?
Well, I mean, pre-COVID, my mentality was to find things that could fill gaps in touring schedules. So if I had Whitesnake a few runs, and David would usually take about 3 weeks off between runs, and so it's a long time to sit around and do nothing. Back then I really wasn't doing I'm doing virtual teaching during that time, and it seems like more sessions than I was doing back then, and records, etc. So it was really nice to be able to be like, hey, it looks like I'm going to have a 3-week window if you guys want to do a couple gigs. And that's kind of how this started. And like Brandon said, I don't know that either one of us ever really thought that it would. It's really taken off popularity wise. You know, we've started to do some shows where we show up and there's, you know, a lot of people there, and we're like, wow, I guess, you know, we're doing quite well with this. So it's exciting to go international with it, to take it to the UK and Ireland, and especially, you know, being from Whitesnake and kind of, you know, that's really Whitesnake country. You know, that's where like the real Whitesnake fans are. So it's, you know, we were saying in a interview yesterday that you know, the UK fans, they're very educated, you know, historically and musically. So, you know, I have a lot of respect for playing for people in the UK. They're not easily impressed. They don't just go like, hey, whatever. It's, you know, it's a little bit of a different mentality than the US. They really are, you know, more difficult to please. So it's going to be fun to like, you know, go over there and bring our A game and try and have a real nice night with everybody. You know, I think the charm in it is that if you go do the big gigs, you've got a lot of casual fans there. You don't always have an opportunity to say hello to the diehards. And these gigs bring out the diehards. These are the people that like buy our records, know who we are. And so this gives you an opportunity to kind of like hang out more or less for a night. It's almost like, you know, yes, you hear us play and yes, it's about the music, but it's also kind of about the hang and like actually like, hey, you know, you want a picture? Absolutely. You know, you want anything signed? Absolutely. Let's do it.
That's great. And so both of you have solo careers as well. Joe, obviously through Joe Hoekstra 13, Brandon, you've got your own solo career. So
Yeah.
how do you find the transition onto smaller stages where it's only both of you with an acoustic guitar? You've got no support band, you know, there's no band behind you to, don't want to say mask mistakes, that's not what I mean, but there's no loud sound as such. It's very bare, it's very stark. So both of you have performed with bands on big stages. How do you find that transition, Brandon? I don't know if you want to answer that one first.
You know, I mean, I've always kept a solo career going, and you know, a lot of times when I'm songwriting, you know, it 90% of my songwriting starts on an acoustic guitar,
Right.
and so what better way to let people know what the song is about and play it for an attentive smaller audience, and really give it a go and let them kind of delve into the lyrics, and so it's rewarding. It's like, wow, this, you know, this is as stripped down as it gets. You literally are watching how I wrote this song, and if you're like the UK fans are diehards, and I think that is something that they just get to go, wow, okay, this guy, guitar, some lyrics, and this is how this was put together, and it's very stripped back. There's no crew. It's just an evening. We kind of call it an evening with Brandon and Joel, and there's nothing to really hide behind except our shitty jokes.
Well, I can assure you that the Scottish audiences like shitty jokes, so we'll enjoy that. I don't know about the English. We'll wait. You have to wait and see what happens with them.
Okay.
And Joel, I take it it's very much the same with you, that you originally write songs on acoustic guitar anyway, so it's something you're quite comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that really out of necessity and making a living with guitar. My story is that I had gone to GIT and kind of was taking the technically proficient route that a lot of guys were taking in the 80s. And just so happened that kind of right when guitar school finished, Smells Like Teen Spirit came out. It became like the least cool thing in the world to have any technical ability on guitar. So that kind of set me off on a very interesting path of doing anything and everything to make a living with my guitar and find a way to make myself valuable to people. So I've done a lot of backing up singer-songwriters and acoustic duos over the years. So I kind of like fit in that role of, you know, if Brandon's playing the foundation rhythm and, you know, Brandon's a, you know, strong foundation rhythm player and strong singer. And over the years, I've always played that role in those types of gigs of like the person that knows the fancy ornamental chords that'll fit well and maybe dress something up a little bit and sing background vocals. That's what I've done with all those. So it fits perfectly in that, you know, when he asked me to do that, I was like, yeah, sure. I've actually done a lot of that with people, you know, especially here in New York City before things kind of took off for me, I did a lot of local gigs like that. So it's something I'm quite comfortable doing, and I love playing acoustic guitar. I mean, I just always have. You know, there's a side of me that someday has toyed with the concept of getting rid of all the electrics and becoming the poor man's Tommy Emmanuel, you know, and just kind of like, you know, spending 10 hours a day on the acoustic and do what I can with it, you know. I love it in that regard, playing acoustic guitar, doing what we do. And, you know, like Brandon said, you know, it's just the two of us, and, you know, he's very easy to work with and get along with. And it just kind of makes for an easy tour when you got two guys that are just like, hey, all right, you know, like, let's, you know, especially, you know, when they, you know, sing and play well, like Brandon does. So it's not, you know, it's that there's nothing not to like about it, really, you know. I guess, you know, we did have the discussion yesterday as well. It's like, you know, people get hung up on this big venue, small venue. It's still just music. And like, if you've had the experience of playing large venues, which I'm glad I have, and, you know, Brandon obviously doing the stadium tour is like, you know, really, you know, had a lot of that lately. I think it's, you know, there's nothing not cool about it. It's cool. It's like street cred, I call it, you know, and like kind of half jokingly, you know, it's like, you know, that you're still down in it with the real fans and like showing them what you got on an acoustic guitar. And I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at choosing the set list, now you guys have got a lot of experience behind you. You've played in a lot of bands, so just to get through some of them, you get your solo music for a start for both of you. You get Whitesnake, you get Poison, Night Ranger, Devon City Angels, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, even Cher we could throw in there. So how do you choose the set list? And is the set list pretty much fixed for the tour, or do you change it every night depending on the vibe of the audience and the venue?
We have quite a few songs. You know, we get done with shows sometimes, and we look at the set afterwards, and there's 3 or 4 songs we didn't play. Mm-hmm. And so really, I mean, for me anyways, you know, I like what the bands that we've been a part of. It's been a blessing and everything. At some point too, it's also nice to take a foot forward on your own. Yeah. And I think that's super important to show, you know, who we are as songwriters, all the while tipping our hat to all these wonderful blessings that we've had playing with these great musicians that we grew up with the posters behind, you know, on the walls. And so it has a lot to do with our solo music, but then we transcend to, you know, of course we'll do some Whitesnake, of course we'll do some Poison, but we also will maybe do an REO Speedwagon song, you know, something that we used to blast in the old, you know, convertible or whatever back in the day. So it's just, we tip our hats to the bands we've worked with, but also tip our hats to the music that we grew up listening to, which is straight ahead rock and roll music. And for me, maybe a little bit of blues in there as well. So that's kind of how I've always approached the set list, is you get to hear who we are as writers, and then we just take you right back to, for instance, I always say, I'm going to take you to the stadium tour before we play a Poison song, and I'll make people get out their cell phones and turn the light on and wave it, because that's something Brett Michaels would do every night. And I thought, wow, I'll give them a little bit of that experience. So it's just all the way around rock and roll and in an acoustic form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, Brandon had pushed for Cher tribute. You know, he wanted to do the turn back time outfit and all that stuff. But I thought, you know, as good looking a guy as he is, I thought it might be a little bit strange. So I said, look, why don't we put together a set that's kind of a combination of a lot of different elements, and talked him into it, but instead of the Cher tribute thing.
I think that was wise. There's certain cities in the UK that you might get off with that, but don't wear that outfit in Glasgow. That's just a tip. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I tried the outfit on for my wife, and she said, you might want to tan first before you do that. So we just nixed the whole idea altogether.
Yeah, just leave it. Maybe in London, you know, that you wouldn't really stand out, but Glasgow, Edinburgh, Newcastle, yeah, you're going to stand out. Just leave it.
There you go.
So to look at the tour, it's been described as, I'm just going to read this out, exceptionally high energy, featuring the inimitable musical talents of yourselves, and with stories from your respective careers and a few surprises. So when you're talking about the stories that you're going to tell, is this just stories about things that have happened whilst you've been touring? I take it you mean funny stories and interesting stories behind the songs, as opposed to dishing the dirt as such.
Well, I've seen people die laughing at this show. I've honest to God, I've seen people ugly tears crying because of I'm a very spiritual writer. I do talk about faith and things I've seen, and and of course I have a strong relationship with my family, and we've been through a lot together. And so sometimes, I mean, we got jokes for days, but we also, for instance, there's a song called "The Hero" that we do, and it's about a situation that I saw firsthand with a young lady and a police officer, and this police officer helping her. That She was 7 years old, helping her on one of her worst days in an automobile accident. And so it's you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you might roll your eyes too. I don't know. Joel?
Yeah, I don't know. We wing it. Brandon is, from his solo shows, kind of has some raps that he's, adapted into the set that are kind of there. And then I sometimes surprise him and chime in and take us on a left turn here or there. So it's good fun. And honestly, with all my other stuff, that's the only time the fans really ever get to hear me speak. It's not like I'm taking the microphone between songs with Whitesnake or Trans-Siberian Orchestra and laying a rap on the crowd. So it's kind of cool in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And what do you mean?
And you sing one.
Yeah, and I actually sing a bit even. I like to think that I damage everybody's hearing by forcing them to listen to me actually sing lead.
That's awesome.
And what do you mean by a few surprises, or are you just going to have to come to the shows to find out what that means?
Well, the thing is with the surprises is I don't always know what Joel's going to say, and he doesn't know always exactly what I'm going to say. And so, I mean, we do have a show down, but it can be very spur of the moment. And sometimes I'll learn something about him that I didn't know, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And so it's always just kind of, each night is different, and
a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to
Brandon kind of calls them out off the set list too. Like, we'll have a set list down on the ground, but we end up kind of calling them out, which is cool because that follows the flow of the night. Then we keep it kind of loose, and it's the same with the banter. The banter is loose, and sometimes it turns into more than we thought it would, or sometimes it's not as much as we. So yeah, we like to keep it organic.
Organic, that's a good word. Organic.
Yeah,
that's a good word. Now, when you look at acoustic tracks, acoustic versions of well-known songs, they're often, not all the time, but they're often changed dramatically. So in the way that you're doing it, are you trying to keep the same vibe of the original, or have you mucked around with the arrangements to make them work?
Joel, you want to answer that one? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I think the arrangements kind of stay the same. I think we play different parts, if I'm playing Here I Go Again, we don't have the keyboards to set up the song, so I kind of set that up finger style, and then instead of playing what would probably be, the John Sykes power chords on the rhythm of that song, with distortion, I'm playing those kind of open chord type voicings surrounding that, and kind of dressing it up the way I would strum it. So, I mean, yeah, you reimagine the songs to a degree. I don't know that we restructure them, though. It's not like, hey, let's skip the bridge, or let's, we pretty much play it down, but I almost across the board have changed what I would play if I had an electric guitar and we were playing full band. It's all the parts are different in terms of what you play on guitar.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, is that how you would have answered that question?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, if I'm playing, for instance, Every Rose or Something to Believe In or something like that, Joel and I, we might not be playing, like he said, we might not be playing the exact same chord space. If, for instance, if I'm playing an E here, he might be playing like he mentioned, more of one with a chimier ring to it up past on the higher part of the neck. And so arrangement pretty well stays the same. We don't really skip parts, but we definitely kind of play it just slightly different, just to make it more interesting. It's just the two of us, so what can we do to fill this part up? A lot of times lot of times, since there's no bass guitar, I will stay a little more chunky than maybe if I had an electric guitar with a full band. I might just keep a heavier right hand. But as far as arrangements, they're pretty well the same.
Brandon, you've already said that you quite like a bluesy style to your playing as well. So, Joel, do you find that you've got such varied careers behind you? Do you find that your styles complement one another, or do you have to make allowances here and there to make it fit together?
No, I think they fit together really naturally. Like I said, Brandon's skill sets kind of go with mine. Like what I'm used to playing that like complementary role on these gigs where, I enjoy doing that because it's like you're the person that kind of comes up with the magic chords to kind of make the song go to a new level, or, finding a way to, maybe play some of the Poison solos, but kind of chordish. So it's not like just single notes sounding like, I'm on an electric guitar with a full band. So just kind of reimagining that stuff. That's what I enjoy doing with the acoustic guitar. And I think our styles complement each other really well in terms of what we do.
And what are you looking forward to most about this UK tour starting next week? Any particular songs that you really enjoy playing for audiences? And of that, questions to both of you.
Man, we haven't. A lot of these songs, off our solo records, haven't been performed over there, and so I'm just interested to see everyone's reaction on these solo songs, and of course I think they're going to sink into the material when we play Whitesnake or Poison or you name it. But I kind of just want to make. I want to make the UK and Ireland, and I want to make that more of a stop every year, and start putting that on the calendar every single year, because there's so many wonderful people that write to us, and I got to be honest, there's some people that have flown from London all the way to Wisconsin to see us, and so there's some fans over there. I want to see the reaction and improve and continue to come back.
What about yourself, Joel?
Just, my answer is always very like macro, in that like the whole thing, like just the whole experience. Like, I think it'd be cool with Whitesnake. When we're playing the UK, it's large venues, and so there's very little connection, especially the last couple times over with COVID happening and whatnot, So I think the ability to kind of just like connect with the fans, maybe make some friends, just like the social aspect of it, but obviously the musical aspect of it, it's good for the old chops, play 12 shows in 13 days over there. So, keeps you on the guitar and keeps me sharp. I'll be getting my Monsters of Rock cruise acoustic set together while I'm over there too. So I'll probably be playing, quite a bit of acoustic guitar, and I think it should give me the opportunity to get out and about a little bit more too. And say with Whitesnake, we're a little bit more like in the band bubble, so to speak. So the whole process, man.
And Joel, just while we're speaking about your favourite parts, etc., looking forward from this point on, obviously, my understanding is that there may not be many more Whitesnake tours, certainly not over in the UK now anyway. But you've got your own career as well outside Whitesnake. Obviously, you're now part of Revolution Saints, great band to be a part of, along with Dean Castronova and now Jeff Pilson, I believe, in bass as well. So there's a new album coming out in Frontiers very soon for that. And also, again, through Frontiers, Joe Hoekstra 13 will be releasing an album very, very soon.
Yeah. So Eagle's Flight is the Revolution Saints record that comes out April 21st. People can check out the first 4 singles up online right now, stream them or check it out on YouTube, whatever you want to do. There's videos for all of them. So, that's turned out to be unexpected. I mean, at first I was a little hesitant. I was around in Night Ranger when Jack Blade started Revolution Saints with Dean and Doug. So I was kind of like, well, isn't this kind of known for the 3 of them? And I had some reservations about it, but after talking with Doug, Doug was pretty much just done and didn't want to we didn't really want to do it anymore. And Jack was the same. And so, you know, Frontiers is like, hey, Jeff Pilson wants to do it. You know, we really want you. And as soon as, you know, I spoke with Doug and he was like, well, man, actually, I recommended that they get you. And so that took away any weirdness there. Like, you know, whether or not there was some funny business going on or anything, you know, you know, Doug and I are mates, you know, and we get along well. I just didn't want any kind of, yeah, I don't know, any weirdness or hard feelings there. So, so once I had his kind of, you know, blessing, I guess, to do it, it's sort of became a no-brainer. Like, what guitarist doesn't want to play with Dean Castronova and Jeff Pilson? So, and then, yeah, shortly after, people should see the first single from my upcoming Joel Hoekstra's 13 album. And of course, that's most of the usual suspects. That's Vinny Appice on drums and Tony Franklin on bass, Derek Sherinian on keys. Jeff Scott Soto actually sings the backing vocals on those albums for me, which is kind of amazing of him to do. But it really is a big part of the sound of the records, you know, Jeff is really, really great at that stuff. A lot of people don't know that, but he's amazing at that. And then I have a great new lead singer on this one named Girish Pradhan, who's from India, and he's immensely talented. I think people are starting to hear more and more about him. He's, you know, going to be a big star, I think. So just, you know, having him on board is really cool. And yeah, people can look for that, like to kind of come out just as Revolution Saints does, because Frontiers doesn't want too much overlap with that stuff.
Yeah. And Brandon, you're working on your own music as well. That'll be, you don't have a release date yet, but it's coming out, and you're certainly very active on your website. Is it Brandon Gibbs Music?
Yeah, BrandonGibbsMusic.com. The song title is The Man You Are, and I had a real good time. I actually I recorded this in Nashville, and the website will have the release date. There will be a video with it, and I'm helping kind of write up the video with the producer, which is something I've never done before. So yeah, just keep BrandonGibbsMusic.com in your Rolodex and check once in a while. And of course, BrandonGibbsMusic.com also has all of the Hoekstra Gibbs tour dates, as well as things I do on my own. So.
Okay. So guys, this time in a week, you're over here starting your UK and Ireland tour. Going to be starting in Edinburgh before heading across Scotland to Glasgow, down to London. You've then got Norwich, Ipswich, Newport, Cannock, Newcastle, Grimsby, Manchester, Ballymena, and finishing in Dublin. And tickets are available at all the usual websites. And of course, I dare say on your own socials, you'll have links to the tickets in these areas as well.
Yes, the website definitely has the links, and Hoekstra Gibbs too has a Facebook page that we'll actually have a lady with us who's going to like do video vlogging and blogging, and so there'll be some interesting content going out on our social medias while we're over there. We're going to try and give everybody
interesting content. Yes.
Interesting.
Well, I look forward to seeing you guys in Glasgow next week. And for anyone watching this, there's still tickets available for all the other shows we've mentioned. Get your tickets now. It's sure going to be a great night by the sounds of it. One not to miss, an opportunity not to miss to see you guys in small settings, playing some great acoustic music. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and best of luck for the tour, guys.
Thank
you.
you.
See you shortly. Thanks for having us.
I appreciate it.
Well, you guys take care.
Thanks, sir.
Cheers. See you soon.